guys, thank you for joining me today. This is the third live and unfortunately the last live. I know, I'm pretty sad too. We'll talk about that later. But this is a third live as part of the series of how to have the career that you love without leaving the job that you hate. I do very much hope that you've enjoyed the first two and will enjoy this one and will get a lot out of it. So please do feel free to join in, jump in with any comments that you have, any questions that you have, because today, by the end of it, I will try and answer them as we go along. But if I can't, I will definitely try and answer them at the end of the session. Okay? Okay. Sorry. So without further ado, what is the third part of job crafting as we've seen so far? We've seen the perception. We've seen the task element. Now we're going to the relational element. So relational element is all to do with who do we work with and how do we work with them. So I couldn't really find a model for you guys. So what I did is I made one myself, a very simple one, but I think it works. So this is a very simple model that I made for you guys. I hope you can see it. Yeah, okay, great. So as you can see that you put yourself in the center, you put the customers on top, you put the suppliers just below, employees to one side, and then your boss or your manager or your, anybody senior up, higher than you in the firm on the other side. Okay. I know it's not the most high-tech thing, but that's what I think it works, right? Sometimes low-tech is the best. Honestly, you give me a piece of paper and a pen, I'm so much happier than if we have to go into all this, technological stuff. But I think that's just me probably. So using this model, if you can, please, like right now, if you can draw in all the relationships or the interactions that you have as part of your job. So what interactions do you have with your customers? What interactions do you have with your suppliers, if any, with your, your employees or your colleagues and your, your boss or your manager? Okay, so I think you've probably been able to put them down, a few of them at least, or even if you have time later, of course you can do that. Because my aim is, as I said, that today, by the end of today, you're going to be able to walk away with a tangible action plan as to how to do what the title of this talk has been saying. Okay, so once you've drawn in all the interactions that you do have at the moment, similarly as we did with the tasks, could you just mark out the ones that are positive? That is, when you walk away from those interactions, you come away feeling energized, you come away feeling appreciated, you come away with positive feelings. And of course, conversely, the other way around as well, that, the ones that kind of get you down, it's those interactions that if you could, if you didn't have to have them, you'd be a lot happier at work, or, something about those interactions kind of gets you down, whether it's a person that you're having to do them with, or it's the actual task you're having to do, or whatever it is. And once you've been able to do that, yeah, probably need 5 seconds, right, at least for that. Okay. Okay. Once you've been able to do that, now we jump straight into what can you do about it. Now, it'll be nice to start with the positive aspects of it, but I do feel that most of us, in fact, I think it's the most cited reason, if not the second most cited reason why people want to quit their job. And that is all to do with the managers and the bosses. So we'll start with the ones, because that's, I think, what causes us the most anxiety, or that reduces the level of job satisfaction that we feel when we go into work. So this is what you can do with those negative interactions that you have. The first thing is, can you actually remove them? Can you actually remove if it's to do with a person, can you remove having to deal with that particular person? So whether you could get rid of the task and that person completely, or is there a way that you could replace or kind of find an alternative to that particular person to deal with within the organization? So those two elements, and I'm just going to give you an example, because I think for me, examples really bring it to life and make it easier for me to understand. And, that's why I like to give examples. And I think from the feedback I'm getting, a lot of you guys want that too. So there was a guy this is one of the case studies. So a guy called Ivan, who was very happy at what he was doing. I think he was a sales manager in a particular region in South America. And he was reporting to two bosses. He was reporting to the head of South America, and he was also reporting to the head of global operations. Now, and sometimes it's just a rapport thing, and he got along very well with South America. And he kind of, didn't seem to gel with the one that was from, global operations. So what he did is that he used his signature strengths. Remember, we looked at that in the last session. Yeah, your top 5 strengths are your signature strengths. And he brought them into play and thought, okay, what can I do about this particular situation? And he found a way to minimize his interaction with the global head by increasing his interaction with the regional head. And for that, what he did was he got to know the regional head a lot better. He asked her what were her pain points, what would she really like from the region, really delved into what would she like. And that worked so well that, and he really enjoyed working with her. And they started projects to do with, I think her pain point was costing, that she wanted to reduce the costs incurred in that particular region. And they got together and they made projects and they did very well together, with the result being that he got to spend a lot more time with his regional head rather than the global head. So that's how he found an alternative. That's how he managed to, change the relationship and minimize his interaction with somebody where it kind of became something that he dreaded doing. So 2 things that we've looked at so far is can you remove it? Can you remove having to deal with that particular person? Or if it's a task that's getting you down, then what you have to do with that person, can you get rid of it? And if you can't, is there a way to find an alternative to that person? Can you maximize your interactions with that particular person and therefore minimize your interactions with this person? So those are 2 solid ways in which you can you can try and tackle that particular issue. Now, the other things which you can do is that if we go back, now this applies both to positive as well as negative interactions. Okay, it applies to both. Now, for the first example, for the first thing that you can do is to build relationships. So as we saw in our previous in our previous example, Ivan enjoyed a really good relationship with his immediate boss, which is the regional head for Latin America. And he just got along with her, and he could see how he could really jump in, help her out with her tools, with her goals for the organization. And, it was to the benefit of everybody, including himself as well, his own job satisfaction as well. So can you build existing relationships? Can you build relationships within the existing interactions that you have? So let's say you're dealing with customers. Now, this is a part of it that you enjoy doing anyway. You love dealing with customers. You love having that interaction with the customers and, seeing what makes them happy, seeing what makes them, what appeals to them. Now, a way that you could build this is to take more time to get to know them from a professional point of view, so that you're not kind of acting after the fact type of thing. So you introduce a product and now you're acting, you're going out to your customers and you're asking them, what do you think about this? You're kind of taking a proactive role. That this interaction that you enjoy so much, you build into it. So an example of this would be hairdressers. Most women that you know probably, they don't think of the hairdressers as their hairdressers. They think of the hairdressers as their friend or their confidant, because hairdressers have built that into the relationship. They've built into the relationship this lovely interaction with their customers, where it's on a friendship basis. It's not somebody just technically able to cut your hair. It's so much more than that. It's this place where you can go and relax, and you feel like you're catching up with an old friend, and you're able to tell her things or them things which you probably could never ever tell anybody that and it just feels, not only do you walk out with your hair, looking amazing, which, let's admit it, you do, I know you do, so you walk out with that, but you also walk away with a positive feeling because you've had that interaction with your hairdresser. And the thing is that that's a customer experience. We're now looking at it from the hairdresser experience. So she gets a job satisfaction, or he gets a job satisfaction of building a relationship with their customers into something that's really warm. And, then when they come in, they feel like they're meeting their friend as well. And they like to catch up with them, like, oh, what happened about this? And what happened about that? And it kind of becomes work into the job. So it's not just about cutting a customer's hair, it's catching up. It's knowing what's going on with them. So many hairdressers will tell you, actually there was a survey done about this, and they said the part of their job that gives them the most satisfaction actually is that interaction. It's not being able to intern at a hairdresser where they get to learn the latest techniques and, or where they're paid the most. Obviously that's a factor, but it was the relationships that they had with their customers. And that's why, if you notice, for most of us, when the hairdresser leaves, we leave with the hairdresser, because we've just got this really amazing relationship with them. Make sense? Yeah? So that's called building a relationship. That's the first thing that you can do. Now, the second thing that you can do to make your work more meaningful and to enjoy what you're doing is to reframe. Now, again, I'm going to explain that in a bit more detail. So this is another example that I got, which was that I read about, that I thought was like really, really nice. A lot of people that work in support functions kind of feel like they only get to interact with employees when there's something wrong. And, that once the problem is solved, it's kind of like, okay, they're not needed anymore. And it kind of feels a little bit cold. This is especially true of IT support. So, we've all been there, right? We call up the IT support, my computer's not working, and they very patiently take us through what maybe a 5-year-old would probably already know. I don't know about you, for me, that is definitely the case. I'm sure if any of you guys have watched the IT Crowd, switch it on and off again is what they used to say to me. But now looking at it from their point of view, it's not very meaningful. It's not a very meaningful interaction. So they reframe it. And how do they reframe it? So they bring in, because obviously they're passionate about what they do, and they want to share that passion of IT with the other employees. So this particular guy requested to hold workshops every month. Completely voluntary, not that they would be paid for, nothing to do like that. But he asked his managers if he could hold a workshop for the other employees. So initially it just started off as a kind of, okay, look, these are the frequent problems that happen, and this is what you can do about them. They became so wildly popular that within 3 months, they expanded to once every 2 weeks, and then eventually once every week. And the role changed completely, that he actually became an educator. So he didn't just talk about the most common problem that people have and then what can they do about it. It also changed into imparting their knowledge about how does this work? How does a computer work? And the way he was able to express it just gave him so much joy, because he got that positive reception from the other employees. Because for a lot of them, they're like, Thank you for taking the time to explain that to me. Oh, like, okay, like now I get it. Now I get, okay, why this this very strange looking thing acts the way it does. And I really get that, and I appreciate you telling me that. So he reframed his role entirely. You see, that there's another example as well. So normally in large companies, when you have product development and you have legal. So normally what happens is that after a particular stage of product development, the product is taken to legal, and legal is asked for their feedback. That is this all legal? Is this all good? So again, like any support function, this lady working in legal she kind of felt like she was very removed from the creative process, and again, only called in when there was, not a problem exactly, but asked for feedback, and it wasn't very meaningful to her. So what she did is that she requested to be joined in, to be included in the product development process from the beginning. And because she was able to guide the product development team at all points as to how legal could affect what they were doing, and be able to stop them even before they went down a route which could cause problems. But more than that, she got involved in the creative process. She felt like part of the team, she didn't feel like somebody on the outside. She now felt like part of the team who was contributing meaningfully to the people in her office, to this amazing, the process of creation, and helping out her organization, because if she did it at that particular point, it saved so many revisions later on. And that's how she built meaning into it. So the first one we looked at was building relationships. The second one is reframing. Now the third one is called adaptation. The third and the final way to do this is called adaptation. Now the example of this is that, because I know most of you guys work at jobs where it's, you're kind of pressed for time to breathe, let alone start building relationships and start doing other things with other people. And you're probably sitting there looking at me and like think I'm a complete wally. That where am I going to get that sort of time from? So my dear friends, this is for you guys as well. This is for everybody, but especially for people who find themselves short on the job. So this is what a particular sales employee did. He kind of had got used to and kind of felt jaded at this job that he did in terms of making sales. He used to go out, he used to have a lot of customer interaction, and that felt nice, sure, but it didn't feel meaningful anymore. And they used to have new employees that would come in every single year, the interns or new employees. And the way that they did training in that particular very much, they would hold workshops. They would, they would say, look, this is the way you could go about it. This is what your customer may say. This is what you can say, and this is how you go about it. And he thought, you know what? I really want to take some of these people under my wing, as many as I can, because I want this next generation of sales employees to have that passion that I used to when I started this job. For him, sales was being able to add value to the customer's life, bringing a product into the customer's life that would make it easier or would benefit the customer in some way. And he felt so proud that he was able to do that. That was his passion, why he got into it in the first place. And he wanted the younger employees to have that, but he was obviously very busy. So he asked for permission to take along one junior employee with him every time he went on a sales call, and for the sales employee to sit in on that particular meeting and see how an actual sale is made. Can you imagine how fascinating that would be for the junior employee? And from his point of view, the sales manager's point of view, he felt like he was contributing to the next generation. It was mentoring. And that just made it so much more meaningful and gave him so much job satisfaction. that really just changed the entire job for him. So to recap and to summarize, we've looked at that for negative interactions, try and remove or minimize and find an alternative. That's for bad interactions. Interactions where genuinely we come away feeling bad. Now, for positive and for negative, the three techniques, the three tools: building relationships, adding that value, that depth to the relationship, like the hairdressers did. The second one, reframing. So not just being the support staff who's called when there's something wrong or is asked for an opinion very casually and then is forgotten about on the side again. So a lot of people working in support generally tell me that this is a very, very common feeling for them. So as the computer salesman, the guy working in IT support did, he reframed his role into being an educator. And that brought so much meaning into his life and into his job. And the last example, which is an example of adaptation, is for people where, we just don't have time. There's no time to try and fit in another task somewhere. So you carry out exactly the same task, but you add something to it that adds meaning. So the sales manager would have done those sales anyway those had to be done. But by taking the junior employee along with him, the junior employee was able to learn practical skills on the job. How does sales happen? How can how do you deal with customers' queries? How do you deal with difficult customers? How do you deal? He gets to see this live, or he or she gets to see this live, but this is the way you do it. And he got the satisfaction of that I'm mentoring the next generation. I'm adding value to the next generation. And that in doing so, it was personal satisfaction for him on so many different levels, but also for his customers that, that the next generation of sales employees as well will have this love for the customer, adding value to the customer's life. And that's adaptation. And that, my dear friends, unfortunately, is the end of all three lives. It is to do, I'm so sad to be leaving you guys, honestly. So for this particular series that we did, it was all to do with how to have the career that you love without having to leave the job that you hate, which was the most common problem brought up to me when we talk about career shifts or career changes. And in that, we looked at perception, we looked at tasks, and today we looked at relational crafting. We also spoke a lot about positive psychology. We spoke about signature strengths. And look, I'm telling you guys again, okay, look, I never want to hear this nonsense about, I'm not unique, and I don't know why I'm talking in this voice, but I'll still continue. But all of that is nonsense. As I told you on Thursday, the chances of anybody in the world having the same signature strengths, the 34 strengths that we spoke about, as you, is 1 in 295 trillion. Okay? There is no other you. Please don't deprive us of your value, because there is no other you. If you won't contribute, then we won't get the advantage of that. We won't be able to learn from you. We won't be able to add meaning or value to our lives if you don't come out and contribute. Okay, so please do. Now, I do hope that, this has been very useful for everybody. I do have a couple of places where you still can go. There is a website called jobcrafting.org, which has job crafting exercises which have been made by, if you remember, Professor Rosensky, as well as Professor Dutton, the first kind of the parents or the mothers, if you will, of job crafting, and the conceptual framework and the theoretical framework, the conceptual especially. So they've made this. Now, this is paid for, okay? I just want you guys to know that if you do decide to go for this, so again, this is your choice completely, this is paid for. And I also do want to make it very clear, I receive nothing from any of the recommendations that that, or any of the sites that I've mentioned, or any of the places that I mentioned, I don't get anything from that. So this again is paid for. So if you would like to, go for it, okay? Now, what I'd really love for you guys to do is that if there's anything I can help you out with, if there's anything that that you'd like to discuss with me, please do get in touch with me, right? If you sometimes all it needs is one session, like one 45-minute session, and it's crystal clear. And the good news, that 45-minute session, the discovery session as we call it, is free. So that's completely free. You can get my professional advice for 45 minutes absolutely free. And you may feel at that particular point that whatever you needed has been done, and you can walk away with that. If you do need more support, then we go into talking about coaching sessions. But before that, we don't go into any of that. And I really do want to help you guys, honestly. So even if you put any questions up on here, I will do my best to answer them through Facebook. So I will do my best to do that as well. And I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed doing these. And I do hope that you have too, and have found it informative. And with that, unfortunately, guys, I'm going to have to say goodbye.